Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our watch club for the Book of Boba Fett. This is the way. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 5, titled The Mandalorian Returns, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and Star Wars in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in less than 12 parsecs. Now, before we fix up our hot rod and go for a ride, let me introduce you to the scum and villainy joining us today. First up, he's a junkyard Jawa who's jonesing for more Django, who's also dated Peli Motto. He's Justin Lawrence.
Yeah, fun fact, she dated a Jawa.
You know what I'm saying?
That's pretty interesting. I wasn't that Jawa.
I thought you were going to say she's very furry. Okay. And joining us from the cantina across the street, sometimes, he's saltier than a sarlacc on the sands of Tatooine. He's Kevin, the Clatoonian wonder kid, Hudson.
I would just like to go on record to say that as a true Mandalorian, I have never taken my helmet off, and holy shit, it stinks in here.
I can imagine, dude. I mean, it must get pretty hot and sweaty.
It must smell like dirty old cheese in those helmets. It's gross.
And last but certainly not least, he's hairier than a Wookiee, but he ain't no Star Wars rookie. We have the dankest dude on Dagobah, Darcy Dank Ferrick Hudson.
Yep. I still never know what to say when you introduce me. So.
That's perfect. I love it. How is it going tonight? Are you guys ready to talk about this episode of The Mandalorian?
Let's go.
The Book of Boba Fett. Sorry.
I did think that I pressed play on the wrong show for a second. It was like, what's going on here?
Wait a minute. All right, well, let's kick things off here. This week's episode kicks off inside a meat packing plant, which is set up as a front for a Clatoonian gang run by their leader named Kaba Baez. And there's a bounty on his head because he owes someone important money. And who's here to collect that bounty? That's right, it's Din Djarin himself, the Mandalorian, as predicted at the end of last week's episode. He casually walks in on Kaba Baez as he's playing cards, and he says his famous line, "I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold." And then after one of the Clatoonians attacks him, he decimates all of them using the Darksaber, and he cuts Kaba Baez in half, but also injures himself with the blade. He then attempts to leave, but is confronted by the employees of the meatpacking plant, and he offers them all the credits in the room behind him, and they let him pass. So, guys, Mando's back. What did you think of seeing him sort of back to his old ways as a Grogu-less bounty hunter? Kevin?
I mean, first of all, the introduction of him behind the curtains there was awesome because it did look like Boba with the rocket pack until he stepped through and it was the spear. I mean, I am just going to say I hate Clatoonians. I've said it before on the show. These stupid dog-faced aliens, they're so just like when you compare them to the alien that he rides the elevator in the next scene, and that just feels original and unique and very Star Wars. These stupid dog-faced ones drive me crazy.
They make me think of the Grinch. Like all I can see is like Jim Carrey's Grinch, essentially without the hair. I feel like that's a Clatoonian.
They kind of also look like a mix of Romulan and Klingons, right? So a bit of both in the way that they've. I don't know this.
And they kind of have to talk like Romulans too, like through those masks, like they can. You know what I mean? Like it sounds very similar
their big
to
pit bull underbites and.
Yeah, it definitely looks like they were designed based off of a bulldog's face. No, so I think this scene was great. I absolutely loved seeing Mando get to wield that Darksaber. Like it was awesome, and obviously seed planting this idea that he hasn't really earned the ability to wield it yet. He still has to learn it. I really liked how they hinted at that in this battle. Like you saw like how it was like this heavy weighted element that he just wasn't actually able to control to the point where he injures himself. So and the action scene, like again, Bryce Dallas Howard, like after last year's awesome Mandalorian season 2 where she introduces Bo-Katan. Like that episode was probably one of my favorites from Mando season 2. Because of the action, because of the choreographed nature of the fighting with the camera work. And here we see it again. It was really well done. She did a good job.
And I love that, I think the episode wastes no time. We get into Mando straight away. But it's funny, I wrote down the note like, wow, we get Mando so early in the episode. And it's like, well, we get him throughout the entire episode, but more on that later. I think his it's cool to see his disposition has kind of changed. He's still... seeing him since he's become a dad, he's kind of gone a little bit soft in that he lets everyone, he says, I only have qualms with Kaba Baez, like I don't want to kill anyone else. And then he gets attacked, and then he completely like slices them up like meat in a meat packing plant, and it was great. And it's just crazy that, and granted, I get it, we've had a longer amount of time with Din Djarin than we have had with Boba Fett, but like this is what I want from Boba Fett. I want those moments of flying off the handle and slicing people in half. Like, I just thought it was super, super well done.
I think it's like it goes to show me, it emphasizes again Mando's fighting style, which is just take all the hits and then deal out more, which is again unique to the Star Wars universe, where he just gets pelted with all these lasers and then still comes out fine and on top. So it's like it was really cool to see that again, and I feel like it wouldn't suit Boba to see him getting shot up, because every time we've seen him in like the animated series as the young bounty hunter, he wasn't about getting shot up, even though he had the Mandalorian armor. So I don't know if I want to see the same thing, but again, that was the action I'm looking for from this series. So
yeah.
And then speaking of taking all the hits, I mean, he even takes one from himself. Yeah. And I just love the idea that, it really does go to show you how dangerous these weapons are, and you never see. You almost never feel that when a Jedi is wielding it, because they have, unless they're Luke, they have so much training with it, or I guess Rey as well. But yeah, they have so much training with them. But so these are really dangerous weapons that, he could have easily sliced himself in half or lopped off a leg there, right? And so that was a fun idea.
Yeah, and I think, Darcy, you called it out. Like, we always remarked about Mando's inability to kind of really be a very well thought out. He either got lucky, or he, like to your point, takes the blows until he can actually strike.
Just brute force his way through, basically.
Exactly. So, again, he still seems like he's new. Even now, even when he has the Darksaber in his hands, he's even more, new, if you will. So it's interesting that they were able to at least keep that level. Like he's still figuring himself out as a fighter.
Also, I just want to shout out Ludwig Göransson one more time. The music during the opening title sequence as a mashup of the two themes was just, it fit so perfectly. And as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, awesome. Okay, let's go. So let's get into this next section here. We then get to a ring world looking like something straight out of Halo. And after an awkward elevator ride, we see Mando limp to complete his bounty after bringing Kaba Baez's remains to an Ishitib who attempts to hire him for another job. But Mando says no and demands directions to the system's substrata, and he's informed that it's down Kolzok Alley. So Mando limps his way back through the nightclub, down the elevator to Kolzok Alley, and after scanning some various sigils on the walls, he finds one of the Mythosaur and enters to find the Armorer and Paz Vizsla. We learn that they are the only two remaining of the sect of Mandalorians that rescued Mando back on Navarro. And after having his wounds tended to, he shows them the Darksaber, and the Armorer recants how the Empire only lasted 30 years, but that Mandalorians have existed for 10,000. She goes on to explain the significance of the Darksaber, explaining to them that it was forged over 1,000 years ago by the Mandalorian Tar Vizsla, who was both a Mandalorian and a Jedi. Mando explains that he has delivered the foundling to the Jedi and that he has completed his mission. And the Armorer offers for him to join their covert as they rebuild. So this question, I want to start off. This is mostly for Darcy, but feel free to chime in if you guys have any thoughts. Hearing the Armorer share that the Mandalorians have been around for 10,000 years, like, are they saying they've existed longer than the Jedi? Like, I don't. Yeah. I'm trying to understand. Were they like the first people?
For sure. They were
Really?
they were one of the oldest civilizations that have a presence in the galaxy for sure.
Wow.
And that they had, and they again have always been formed around this warrior mentality and like the thrill of the hunt and stuff like that. So they're very rooted in like a very tribal aspect. We just caught up to them like thousands of years after their tribal origins.
Interesting.
Well, and think about it. The human race as we know it has only been around has been around for about 7,000 years, and we can only fly to the moon. When you think of this universe or galaxy where they're flying to universes and different planets and everything like that, they've probably been around for tens of thousands of years, if not longer. So
True. Yeah.
So sick.
I thought we knew that though from past animated series and stuff like that. Just that their dynasty is lengthy. They do surpass the Jedis. I don't think that was the surprise for me. It was the surprise of knowing that there was only 2 of them left. Right? I thought more would have gotten out.
See, I was wondering if it's only the 2 of them left, or it's only the 2 of them that made it to this certain point. Like I'm wondering if the others maybe went to different locations just on the way to run type thing and going into hiding in other planets or whatever.
Well, and was that group of Mandalorians that we saw in that battle there and throughout the first 2 seasons, were they the last of the Mandalorians entirely, or just of that sect of them? Just that smaller group. Yeah. That's the word. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense then for them to well, we'll get to it. When they disown him, I just thought it was a little weird because I was just like, what the heck? Like, why would they do that? There's so few of them. But anyways, I also wanted to shout out, I thought there was a pretty cool performance thing from Jon Favreau here, where the moment she says that it was forged by Tar Vizsla, you see a sort of a bigger breath come out of Jon Favreau's Paz Vizsla, just in the way that like you sort of see his intentions in that moment. I just thought it was really good physical acting in a show where again we have these characters that just will not take off their helmets. I think it's really important, and I don't know. I thought it was pretty dope.
So yeah, one of the cool things about that too is just again tying in the Vizsla clan to the saber, because every time we see the saber, it's usually tied to one of them. So it's very neat to see that again continued on. Yeah, even this late on in the saber's legacy, basically.
For sure. I like that they're bringing more and more of the animated in, right? What's been established and built in the animated is finding its way into the live action, and I'm loving that.
Well, and you guys, you guys would know a lot of the history that was recounted here, right? Because it has been explored in the cartoons and everything, to a certain extent at least, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, as a more casual Star Wars fan, still a diehard, but a little bit more casual, this was a great sort of catch up for people like myself to sort of learn a bit more about, the Mandalorians themselves, and then the very important blade itself.
Totally. Well, I mean, let's keep going there, because we then see Din explain to Paz Vizsla and the armorer that he won the Darksaber in battle after defeating Moff Gideon, and the armorer tells. Oh, and we also learned really quick that Moff Gideon was captured by the New Republic and taken in. So we'll see where that goes. But the armorer tells Din that the Darksaber is a more noble weapon for him to wield, and takes his Beskar spear to turn it into armor. She then tells Din the story of Bo-Katan Kryze, and we witness the destruction of Mandalore and the Night of 1,000 Tears, which is just a freaking badass thing, name. She says that the few that did survive only did because they walked the way, and that they may someday return to their homeworld. Din asks her to forge armor for Grogu, and she reminds him of the way of the Jedi, saying they must forgo any attachments. Din reminds her that that's the opposite of their ways, and then she bundles up the armor in a very little Grogu-looking sack. It was so cute. So what did we think of actually getting to see the Night of 1,000 Tears, and what kind of armor do you think they made for our precious little baby boy?
All I gotta say is dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
Oh yeah! Oh, you stole it.
Dun dun
Took the
dun
words
dun
right
dun.
out of my mouth.
Man, it was like Star Wars Terminator, and it was great. And the flashback was just so reminiscent of like that typical '90s sci-fi flashback of past apocalyptic events. It was perfect.
And there's definitely more 90s nostalgia vibes that we're going to get to later in the episode. But you're right, Justin. Like, that totally fits in with that way. And I just thought seeing Mandalore's destruction, the K2 droids walking through, like Terminators, probe droids flying through. It was just, through the fire was incredible. And between that and this ring planet that he was on, I just felt like the shots in this episode were the best that we've seen all season. And the cinematography, it was either really, really fantastic, or I was just really excited to get off Tatooine. Like maybe that's what's going on.
I honestly think it has everything to do with getting off of Tatooine, because everything just feels so much more wide in scope, right? Because it was such a reserved story about Boba Fett on Tatooine. It was very close, right? Yeah. Versus now we're back in space. We're seeing these epic, beautiful spacescapes that are just stunning with and very devastating action, like that explosion, right?
Oh my gosh, dude.
Oh man, the flashback was crazy.
Yeah, I really like this scene because, again, it kind of drives home the fact that Star Wars started off as like the fantasy in space, basically, with the wizard and then the young hopeful hero type thing. And so seeing this, whole setup with her like mixing the brew or whatever before telling this epic story really set up the whole fantasy feel of like an ancient civilization and all that stuff. So I thought it was a really neat, aspect of, storytelling, was to really, again, drive home those fantasy factors from that one scene. But again, seeing the Night of Thousand Tears was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Again, we've heard about that before. And so just seeing what it looked like really drove home how much of a devastation it actually was. So
yeah, we heard Moff Gideon say the line, the Night of the Thousand Tears, like in Mando. It's like, what is that? What is he referring to? And we get to see it. And dude, seeing the helmets on the ground, like, it's just, there's so much to go back, and I've watched this scene a couple times now, and to just pick out from what's going on in that moment, it's just unbelievable.
I mean, that's very much like the skulls on the ground that the T-1000s are stepping on. But for me, I think of all the amazing shots in this scene, the just sheer amount of TIE fighters flying through the sky was such a cool visual.
And you got to know, like, I think the armor even mentions it, like, Moff Gideon was responsible for a lot. Like, you could imagine he was one of the TIE bombers that sort of led that attack, right? And we see him in his TIE bomber, and it's the same TIE bombers that we see flying over there, and it was just, it's so unbelievably phenomenal. And then, regarding little baby Grogu's armor, it's got to be little Beskar chainmail, right? Like, is that going to be light enough for him to walk in, or is he going to be?
He's going to be like Frodo with the mithril,
Yeah, true.
I was thinking it's either chainmail or maybe it's some sort of like pauldron thing, because you look at the Mando, he's got the Mudhorn on the pauldron, and they killed the Mudhorn together. So it only makes sense to incorporate that into his piece of armor. That was my whole thing, because like they are a clan of two, so it'd be, for them to both walk around with that reminder on there somewhere would be really fitting for him. I mean, again, he seems pretty lonely, so
right, he does seem lonely.
He wants to see the little guy.
He just it reminds me when he looks at the little cloth bag, right, and it looks like Grogu. I could almost imagine that it doesn't actually look like Grogu, but because he misses him so much, it's like when you see shapes in clouds because you're thinking of something. It's like he just sees little Grogu's face, and just, I don't know. It was, maybe I'm a big fan of Grogu. I don't know what's going on. I just got all the feels this season, this episode. I was going to say this season of The Mandalorian. Okay, so then we see the armorer and Din training in the way of the blade, but we see Din struggling to wield it. He says it gets heavier with every swing, and she tells him his mind is distracted, and then Paz Vizsla's like, yo, I challenge you to a battle, Holmes, and he wants his saber back in his family. So Din and Paz have this dope battle, but Din wins, and then they have to say the whole helmet removal creed prayer thing, and he admits to them that yes, he's taken his helmet off. And then they're like, yo, you're not a Mandalorian anymore, and they kick him right out of the covert. So he hitches a flight to Tatooine, I think, to look for a new ship, and after an argument with an RX flight attendant droid, he stows all of his precious weapons for safe travel. He has a cute moment with a green Rodian, which finally we get a green Rodian in Star Wars after not getting to see one since I think Greedo. But anyways, he lands safely on Tatooine. Guys, he's no longer a Mandalorian. Question number one, can they call the show The Mandalorian? And number two, what did we think of seeing Star Tours in canon now?
What I thought was really interesting is the fact that mean, when we left off, he had recently found out that his covert, or the whole thing, was like basically an extremist sect of the Mandalorian culture.
Right, okay.
So I feel like he didn't seem too shook by that. Honestly, it was more just like he lost a place where he could have called home, and he's like, well, crap, now I have to go figure out where I'm going to go from here type thing. And so,
what's next? Yeah.
But that's the only thing I took away from that, basically.
Well, this is where we see that sort of thematic thread from the rest of the series, right? You know, talking about, you know, who your people are and knowing your tribe and that sort of connectivity. And, you know, very much we saw that story told through the, you know, Boba in the first part of the season. And now we see how, you know, this is the way mentality can be a bit fragile based on sections of belief, right? And the structure, because, you know, there's so few of them. Why would they just neglect him, right? Because he's not pure, right?
I don't know, man. Yeah. It just seems like there's so few of them, and they let him keep the Darksaber. It just really seems odd what these people believe or say they believe, or like what's convenient for them. I don't get it, man.
Yeah, you got to think their whole creed is that it's all for each other. And so by taking off your helmet, you expose your individual identity. And so once you've done that, you're more about yourself than you are for the rest of the pack.
Okay.
You know?
I guess.
Yeah. But I also feel like, you know, the note at the end there that the armorer says, you know, you have to go to the mines of Mandalore and to like repent for whatever, but like
he's gonna get baptized again.
But like he's gonna, what's it called? Like, is he gonna do that? Do you know what I mean? Because he believes in his faith, right? Like,
I think the idea is that he's going to find a balance. I think the whole point of him and Grogu is to reunite Mandalore. I think they're gonna, you know, I think the show's gonna go from the Mandalorian in the literal sense to then becoming the Mandalorian as defined by Din Djarin, changing the way. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna be like, nah, that was the way. But this is the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're all just going to say, that was the way.
That was the way. Exactly, right?
Oh, and just, I mean, going back to, you know, him swinging the saber with the armorer there, and her talking about how he's not controlling the blade or fighting with it, he's fighting against it. Yeah. It echoes a lot of Kanan teaching Sabine in Rebels. When he was talking about how it's different than other lightsabers in that it's a constant flow of energy that's being pulled from you, and it's feeding off your emotions and everything else, your thoughts.
Yep.
So the fact that he seems to be very like lost right now without Grogu, after coming to the realization that the sect that he grew up in is kind of crazy compared to other Mandalorians. He's in a very confusing place right now, and it goes to show that blade is that much heavier because of it.
So I wrote a note. The one thing that I took away from this going into season 3 of The Mandalorian is that he has lost his way because he does not have Grogu, right? He does not obviously have his people. This episode lays some really compelling groundwork for The Mandalorian season 3 in the Book of Boba Fett episode 5. So
I know. But Justin,
well, before we move on from the scene, I did want to share a quick little theory that I had involving the Rodian, the little green Rodian.
Oh yeah.
Now, imagine he's about 9 or 10 years old, which would be the exact time that it's been since A New Hope. And we know that this mother and son are flying to Tatooine. What if they're visiting the grave of Greedo, their poor befallen patriarch? They're only there for a short time. We see them leaving planet shortly
Kevin.
after.
Yo,
I love
can we tweet that
idea.
from the Geekcentric? Can we tweet that?
Please.
Yo, is this
That's
Greedo's
a
kid?
fantastic theory.
Share it with the world.
Kevin, you don't often have theories for these episodes. That's my favorite theory you've ever shared, ever. He's the bastard son or daughter of our beloved Rodian. Okay. Well, listen, I also want to just shout out Star Tours. It felt kind of weird going, kind of going on it after Batuu came, after Galaxy's Edge came out or was launched, and kind of having that ride in Hollywood studios. To see it now sort of really canonized in universe, it just helps to really blend that ride together. And you got to know, they're going to probably pull some sort of scene on this ring world, or they're going to have a little moment with, with the little Rhodian kid. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that whole Mando scene is now going to be part of their safety briefing. When they stop the guy and be like, all weapons, and it's just constantly flashing back to him taking another weapon off and stuff like that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I did like that they found a way to make that fit. Do you know what I mean? And give it a little bit of a moment to kind of showcase a part of Star Wars lore that might not necessarily be entirely canonized, but it is now in the way they portray.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So,
dude, I mean, if they
Galaxy's Edge is
next, if they change the video of the little kid getting buckled in by his parent, and instead it's Greedo's son sitting there, and his mom buckles him in, and then he looks to the right to see his dad, but then gets all sad.
Oh my god.
Oh, my heart. Okay, well, once he's landed in Mos Eisley, he makes his way to and then rescues everyone's favorite junkyard mechanic. Pelimoto is back. He rescues her from a giant womp rat, and he mentions she found a ship for him, and she reveals to him that she found an N1 Naboo starfighter, which is freaking dope. After some trepidation, she convinces him to help her finish putting it together. And she talks about her past love life and how she dated a Jawa once, saying they're quite furry. And then we get a dope montage of them fixing up the ship, and the Jawas return with a part that they crimped off a Pike Spice Runner ship. They fire it up, and Mando takes it for a spin. He flies over Mos Eisley. He flies through frickin' Beggars Canyon, and then up into space as he travels by that same Rhodian kid. And listen, we talked about Star Wars being a little bit too sort of childish in with the whole race on the little mopeds or whatever. But this moment, as sort of cheesy as it was the perfect 90s Star Wars cheese that we needed. And I want to ask you guys, what did you think of this new chromed out starfighter? And are we all pre-ordering the Lego set right now?
Just Wizard. That's
Wizard, man.
Wizard!
Yeah.
Wizard. That was it. That was the perfect cap to that scene, too, because, we talk about, how fan service can be kind of handled, right? I feel like Nate had a lot of problems with...
okay, we're bringing it up again.
Season 1. The Mandalorian Season 1, I think it was Chapter 5, when we actually get that reveal of Boba being alive at the end, finding Fennec. This, I feel like, does some of the similar tropes where it's showing us the places that we as the audience have already been to in past movies. And, they're being relived in a new moment with a new character, and they don't necessarily know the significance of that place, but we do as an audience. It was a really nice nod to the fans of appreciating the prequels, right? So, and that ship looks dope.
Well, it absolutely does. I think to defend myself a little bit, I think my problem at the time of that episode was that I just had an issue with sort of the most obvious of Star Wars things to be showing off. Whereas here, these were deep cuts that really hit home for, at least me as a Star Wars fan. Faster Than a Fathier, right? The horse dog things from episode 8, everyone's favorite moment. But then, talking about a Naboo starfighter and how he doesn't need a docking ring, which are those, we see them all the time in the prequel trilogy, right? Where
and in the animated series.
Oh my gosh.
Anakin and Obi-Wan always use them.
And
it's also, wasn't that the ship that Anakin took his first flight in when he was on Naboo?
Yeah.
He hops in there with R2 and then they go out and start,
No, that's
a whole shit,
that's
ship.
I think that was the biggest significance for me, at least, is that it was the same ship that Anakin flew when he was a kid.
Dude, and then BD, the BD droid from Jedi Fallen Order, and then pod racing through Baker's Canyon, dude. It's just so hype. I think this episode made me realize how much I actually love Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. I really do think that this episode sealed the deal for me on that I am a huge fan of it, because that for me was my first introduction into Star Wars. And dude, it was so good. It was so good. Kevin, what did you think?
Well, hashtag best of the prequels. Please at me.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I agree with you.
When he first lands on the planet, I thought it was interesting because you see a sort of archway in the background that looked very Jakku at first.
I was like, did he land on Jakku? Yeah.
And then the overhead says Mos Eisley, and you sort of start to piece things together. But I thought this was great, and the little bubble on the back of the Star Cruiser that's clearly meant for a little traveling companion. That is a moment I can't wait to see.
It's so perfect, and I gotta say, shout out to Amy Sedaris. As much guff as I've given her character, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you.
Up, I was like, Nate's gonna lose it.
I did initially lose it, but I actually didn't. I didn't mind her here. I thought the direction they took her character, where they almost sort of really played into kind of almost like it played up the whole sitcom aspect of her character, like where she turns to all the droids and she's like, Mando's here, like you would expect to hear like a crowd of people like cheering in the background or something. And I laughed out loud when she spoke Joey's, like when she's like I was like, that seems like some improv Amy Sedaris stuff that was just, it really worked.
Also, she probably has slept with more than one Jawa if she's that fluent. I mean, that's like, that's a long relationship or multiple to get that fluent. I mean,
yeah,
come on. We've never seen anyone else speak it, so that's where it threw me for a loop.
I mean, I will say my one issue with this whole sequence in the show is that I even turned to Sarah as it was starting, and I said, well, cue the building montage.
Yes.
But it was a bit long. I mean,
that
did not need to be 5 minutes long, I don't think.
No,
this is where pacing becomes an issue yet again. I thought the pacing up to this point was really good. Here, we spent too much time. Right, just to get to obviously those goodies.
It felt like they had a really cool idea, which this is a really cool idea. Him flying a freaking Naboo starfighter down Beggar's Canyon was awesome, but did they need to have this much to get there? Like it felt like they just, we don't have another idea, so just pad that out, right? And I totally agree. I think that was probably the only issue that I had, but I don't know, man. I think the other aspect to it too is there was a little bit more connection to the Book of Boba Fett, where Pelimato does bring up the Pikes. She does talk about them a little bit, so we can see maybe there's some connection there. So then he's flying up in space, and he does a little head nod thing to Greedo's kid, which is just canon now. I'm just taking it, Kevin. It's happening. He's caught by the Popo, and one of them being Carson Teva, who, after recognizing Mando's voice, lets him off with a warning, and then asks him if he's met him before. Mando says he's got the wrong guy, but just before Mando answers any questions, he speeds off, and I love that moment where the guy's like, how do you go into hyperspeed or whatever? Is like, oh, no, that was just his normal engine, bro. Like, don't worry about it. His sub-like, dude, like, so cool. So freaking dope. Like, it's the Star Wars equivalent of saying, like, shut up, dude. He's badass. But the Two Republic police decide they don't want to fill out any paperwork and decide to let him go. I would have made the same decision. So we get to see Carson Teva again, Mr. Paul Sun-Hyung Lee himself.
Yeah.
And he's popping up all over Star Wars these days. And,
I think this is purposeful, though. Like, is this?
Well, that's what I was going to say. He mentions the attack on the Empire back on Navarro. Do we think this is him? A first attempt at trying to recruit Mando into the New Republic.
Potentially, I think that's what they're hinting at. I also think, though, that like Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is going to probably be at the core of the New Republic show if they decide to do something in that vein, right? Like, like now that I don't know what's actually happened with that series, but if it's still a thing and it's actually going to happen, I think it'd be interesting to place him at the core of trying to build, a Ocean's 11.
Dude, give me a Carson Teva, Miggs Mayfeld buddy cop show.
There you go.
Yeah, like he's like the straight guy, and then you've got Miggs Mayfeld who's like cracking jokes and stuff. Like it writes itself, and we don't need Gina Carano to be a part of it. It's fine.
My mom, again, I was watching with her, and she just was laughing when she realized that the X-Wings had been reduced to the police car of the universe now. Like, they went from being the cool heroes vehicle, and now it's just the boys in blue pull you over in the X-Wing now. It's just
boys in blue.
It's so funny. Like,
that should be a T-shirt.
Oh, dude, I would rock that.
Well, I just love the idea that they don't like to do the procedural paperwork. It's like, if they were on Tatooine and they find a few kids behind a dumpster doing some spice, and they're like, we'll let you go this time with a warning,
No, totally. There's I can't remember what it's called or what it is, but you can look it up. It's probably not it doesn't hold up the best these days, but on YouTube there's a video of like cops but in the Star Wars universe, and I believe it's stormtroopers, but like how phenomenal would it be if they brought that back and it was these New Republics? I don't know. It'd be sick. All right, let's get back to the end of the episode here. So he returns and he mentions to Pelimato that the ride was wizard, and he does finger guns. No, he doesn't. And she tells him that he has a visitor, but not to worry. She locked her out and she enabled the security system, but that security system didn't work at all. And Fennec Shand jumps down to their surprise and asks him if he's looking for work. She says there's no bounty. They just need some muscle. And he tells her his services are on the house. But first, he's got to pay a visit to a little friend. So this brings us to the end of the episode and our prediction segment, where we like to spill the boba tea and try to predict where this series is heading next. So do any of you lovely womp rats have any theories on what to expect in this next episode or next few episodes? Do we see Grogu in the next episode? Is this show just The Mandalorian now? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I am confused about how this is going to work, in that, they hinted that they were going to recruit Din at the end of last episode. Then we get him. They set up for it. They recruit him, but first he has to go on a mission, which feels like it would be the whole basis of Season 3 for Mandalorian. And
right.
So does he show up with Grogu, and then Season 3 is just a huge flashback, kind of like the first episodes of this, and we find out how he gets him? I just don't know.
It's very confusing.
I'm very confused because I feel like this does feel like it's more of a Season 3 thing, right?
Right.
But
100%.
But the fact that he says, "Oh, I just have to go visit a friend," is he going to go and then come back? Is that all he's going to do? Is he just, "Oh yeah, I just want to make a quick trip and say hi." I keep in touch. Fly by, say hey,
take
see
a
how
quick
he's doing.
selfie, post to Instagram.
Yeah, see how he's doing, see if he's grown a little bit. I'll be back like a day.
It does seem kind of weird, right? I think the only way that I can sort of justify it in my mind is that yes, those are his intentions, and then he gets pulled in to this thing that Boba and Fennec are doing before he has the opportunity to book another first-class flight. That's the only way it would work.
Yeah, that would be the only way it would work.
Right? Because from a pacing standpoint, it really makes no sense to send him away.
Nope.
And then bring him back? Like, we have 2 episodes. We have 2 episodes, Book of Boba Fett people, like Robert Rodriguez and Jon Favreau. Like, listen, we don't have enough time to do a whole episode of the Mandalorian. As much as I enjoyed all of it, in this show, it's just I don't know. I have no idea how this is going to continue going forward.
I will say that if I were to predict anything, it's that we will in fact see Boba Fett in the next episode. Okay. I'm not sure how you have a 7-episode long show without the titular character in one of those episodes. That just seems like a very odd choice to me.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see Boba. I also think we're going to see some confrontation from the Pikes, given that he's got a piece of their ship on his ship. I think maybe that we might get something from that little moment. I don't think we're going to see the big battle that we're all expecting to see in this show. I think they're going to save it for Mando Season 3, maybe make it the first half of the arc of Mando Season 3, and then maybe we're going to see a tagline that says, Boba Fett will return in The Mandalorian. Like, it's just like, well, I don't know.
I mean, the only thing I could really take away from that, the whole end scene there, is that he knows where Luke and Grogu are. Like,
right.
The fact that he can just go see them means he knows where they are. So that is the one thing. Is like, that's interesting to me. I wonder where he is right now. Has he set up the school, or is it still before that and he's just a wandering Jedi with a young Padawan? Like, and
are we going to get like CG Mark Hamill again, or are we just going to get that weird sort
that
of
that only works as a WoW once. Yeah, like that works as a WoW once. I don't know if we could do that. I was even like with rumors of potentially them, de-aging Harrison Ford to put him at the end of this series. I feel like that even still feels like a bit of a, it worked for, The Mandalorian and putting Luke. We'll just do it with Han and Boba Fett. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, don't you tell me you wouldn't mark out to see young Han.
Yeah, sure. If he flew in with the
from your house.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Anyways, but I think you're right, Nate. I took away from the scene when the Jawas come back with that part. Yeah, it came from a Pike ship. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that makes sense. Like, he says, oh yeah, I'm gonna go see Grogu, and he decides that he's gonna up and leave, but then gets pulled into a confrontation, which inevitably
where his
delays.
ship gets damaged.
Sure,
and he can't.
You can only do that once
Grogu.
too, right? Like,
I know. Well, do they blow it up after giving it to us, and it's so amazing? We're like, no. All right, well, guys, let's get to our final thoughts and score for this episode, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 ex-Jawa boyfriends. Justin, let's start with yourself.
Yeah, I'm so confused about this episode because it's probably one of my favorite pieces of live action Star Wars TV content that we've gotten. It did so much in a great way to set up for The Mandalorian Season 3, but it does this in the closing chapters of another series, and it doesn't feel like it's meant to connect in any way. Now, that being said, yes, this had some probably the coolest Star Wars stuff. See the Darksaber being wielded within the first few minutes of the episode. Bryce Dallas Howard killed this episode very much like she killed that intro episode for Bo-Katan. The action sequences are so well done. And yeah, the pacing for me felt a bit off with the rebuilding of the broken down Naboo starfighter. But the episode does deliver on some awesome fan service moments of reliving those pod racing moments. And, again, as it was said, totally wizard, man. This episode brings the best of The Mandalorian to this series with action, violence, a little bit of humor, but with the wrong character at the core of this story. So, while I would say this is probably the best episode of The Mandalorian, this is not The Mandalorian. This is the Book of Boba Fett. So I'm giving this a 3.5 out of 5.
Interesting. Cool. Okay. Kevin, go for it, bud.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely spot on there, Justin, that it did have a few pacing issues, but I'm able to overlook those. And it did feel wildly out of place, given the length of this show that we're watching, being 7 episodes, and to devote an entire one to a character that isn't the star of this show. It seemed a bit odd, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to justify that going forward with just 2 episodes left. But I'm totally with you. It is probably the best episode of not just this show, but of The Mandalorian so far. It just had so much heart, and the fact that Din Djarin is just the biggest mush on the planet. Like, this guy is just such a sappy bastard.
He's a dad.
I just need to see him walking in rain on Coruscant.
Yeah.
But it got me the most excited for maybe not even just for this show, but for moving forward with these characters. And I think if anything, it goes to show that maybe Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett aren't really 2 separate shows, but just different perspectives of one bigger story.
Sure. Totally,
and if they can sort of swing that by having Boba show up a bit more in season 3 of Mando, then maybe that's just the master plan at work, and we're only seeing the beginning stages of it. So strangeness aside, I've got to give this high marks, the highest marks I've given an episode for this show so far, just because it was so great. So I'm going to go with a solid 4.6 out of 5 Jawa ex-boyfriends.
All right. Okay. Darcy.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. I mean, again, it was very confusing, but looking back on it, I think it was a necessary thing to do to show us where Din is in the life right now, like after losing Grogu and his ship and where he belongs. Basically, it answered a lot of those questions that I would have had he just popped in and been part of Boba's story going forward. So I think it really will be interesting to see just how much we will see him in this season, if he does get to go see Grogu before getting caught up in everything or not. I'm on board, and like you guys said, it got me really excited for more Mando story, and I am looking forward to see how he will work with Boba going forward. The pacing was a bit off, but at the same time, without that there, it would have just been like 5 minutes shorter. It would have been again, the episode served a nice purpose in telling us where he was and how he's feeling. So, and all those throwbacks were awesome. Like, it made me feel excited to be a Star Wars fan. Remember where some of my earliest memories of Star Wars are right now in the new updated universe and stuff like that. So it was really cool. So I'm giving it a solid 4.5 out of 5 Jawa ex-boyfriends.
Beautiful. I think Yeah, I'm going to mirror a lot of that. I think it's a little upsetting that one of my favorite episodes, or my favorite episode of this show, was an episode of The Mandalorian. I think it's also crazy because back when The Mandalorian was announced, I remember so many people being mad that it wasn't Boba Fett as the main character, and now he's, the Mando himself has become the favorite over Boba Fett, even after this show.
I mean, what does that say about what this show has been so far, and that they've taken a character like Boba Fett and almost made him second tier to this other character? It's kind of weird that it's all worked out this way.
Right, and it's like they predicted even before the reception of the Book of Boba Fett sort of came out from fans, like, that they'd have to pivot and they'd have to give us more Mando. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's just... I don't know. The episode was certainly longer than it needed to be and had some slower moments, but overall, like you said, Darcy, so much of Star Wars, new and old, was exciting enough to keep me more engaged this week. And that old Naboo fighter is freaking sick, and I'm totally pre-ordering that Lego set. I loved getting off Tatooine for half the episode. The episode was just shot really well. Those big sprawling sequences captured with some really great artistry and cinematography, and that moment of seeing the Night of 1,000 Tears, I think it's called, right? And Mandalore getting destroyed is one of those sort of big Star Wars moments that will stick in my brain, even though it was such a short sequence. I wasn't bothered by Amy Sedaris as much this time around, and she had some funny lines that really did get to me. This feels like actual momentum for the show, I guess, or the overall story, but no momentum for Boba Fett at all. Right, for the Mandalorian, but no momentum for Boba Fett himself, right? And I think it just seems really strange that with such little time remaining in the Book of Boba Fett, we talk about it. I think we talk about it at least once a week, especially when talking about this show, is the aspect of a show having confidence in what it wants to do. And I don't have that yet from this show. I really don't. So it'll be interesting to see where they go forward with it. Shout out to Bryce Dallas Howard for directing this episode. I think there was such a huge disappointment with episode 3 of The Mandalorian, but she really made up for it between episode 3 of season 2 and this episode, which was really great stuff.
I mean, I'm almost for Bryce Dallas Howard being a significant voice in the Star Wars universe going forward. If
100%,
her trajectory of improvement
is going up.
From
she should do a movie.
It's like she's getting more and more comfortable in this world.
Yeah.
The differences between her first and third episode that she's been a part of are just staggering. So if that's the case, like, let's go. Give her a movie.
Yeah,
and it seems like she understands how to direct the story of Mandalore. You know what I mean? I think that's it's something. I feel like something's connecting with her on that level that she's able to do that. So it's great stuff. I think this episode was pretty wizard, but again, because of its placement and because of where it is, it did knock it down just a little bit. So 4 out of 5 Jawa ex-boyfriends Utini. I am going to say this episode was. All right, well, that's it for this week's episode of Watch Club. Oh, did you have something you want to jump in?
Well, I just realizing now, why didn't Boba go to pick up Mando? I mean, if they heard about Mando was in town, why wouldn't Boba be the face to go pick it up? At least he would have been in the episode, and then that would have made more sense to me. I don't know.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I just realized that now. Why wasn't it Boba?
And the only reason, again, I give it a 3.5 because I think I'm the lowest score of the 4 of us, is because if I'm looking at it as part of the Book of Boba Fett, this felt so outside of that, but I loved so much of it, and on that basis alone, it knocks it down a significant point, because I don't know how this is meant to add anything to the story of the Book of Boba Fett, other than just Nate, you called it out. Some of these series like to do, take a break on one of the episodes and do something outside of the, regular storyline.
Sure.
Was that this?
Well, I am just thinking maybe we get a justification at the beginning of the next episode and we see that Boba is off doing something else. Because my only question is, how did Fennec know that Mando was on the planet? How could they possibly have known that not only was he on Tatooine, but he was at this specific, spaceport, and
The only thing I can think of, and this is really stretching it, but maybe when Fennec was at Pelimato's in the past, because she's there in Bad Batch, maybe she put like a little like camera or sensor or something like that says, when any Beskar comes near here, let me know, or something. I don't know.
I think the more believable excuse is the fact that they have eyes on the spaceport. They already said that in the past episode.
Eyeball Man, Eyeball Inspector Gadget Man is spotted him for them.
Someone is watching the spaceport for anyone who comes in, mainly the Pikes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like if they see a guy in Mandalorian armor walk off the thing, they'd be like,
okay.
Someone might want to let Boba know about this dude type thing.
Totally. That makes more sense. Okay. Thank you, Darcy, for squashing that. All right, well, that is it for this week's episode of Watch Club. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you haven't already, this Mandalorian episode's got me all mixed up. I mean, Boba Fett episode. Anyways, if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, let me shoot first over to our resident junkyard dog, the Jawa himself, getting dirty and furry with the Pelimato, Justin, to tell you how you can reach us.
God, that's intense. They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or at Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
You just got to imagine like what that sounds like too, right? Those moments of passion between her.
Nope, I
and
don't
the
want to think about it. I don't want to think about it.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other episodes covering the latest and greatest shows and movies out now, including our recent spoiler-free and spoiler-filled review for Ozark Season 4 Part 1. And we also did a really fun episode that I would be really interested to see how Darcy scores on, which is our Fake or Real Star Wars Names edition, where I put Justin and Kevin to the test to see their knowledge on the different species, the different character names, and the different planets in the Star Wars universe.
You would have been proud of me, Darce.
Oh, okay. Definitely.
You probably do better than I. I'm terrible with names, and space names are no exception for that. So,
well, listen, you scud-buttled skit dogs or whatever I said in that episode. We also have our weekly This Week in Geek episodes where we cover the latest news and trailers from around the Geekiverse every Wednesday. Justin, Kevin, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say, don't fret.
away.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, that is, yeah.